Hi guys, this is Sam Mall for SAP Careers and Job Seekers Group. Um, you might have seen that when you actually are working in the IT consulting industry, one of the lower hanging fruits is jobs as a tester, right? So a lot of people who are not developers or who are not configurators or who are not consultants would actually go out and do testing. And testing has, in fact, been one of the go-to areas in terms of available jobs into the market. Now, one of the benefits of working in the testing area is you may not be limited to one particular application. You can actually test different applications, different environments, and you might be using the same kind of a tool. For example, you might be a Selenium for testing websites or web application development. You might be using load runner for testing, basically, or a quick test professional for testing loads. Load testing is like how many people can log in and what is the response time. So there are different tools. So in SAP we use a built-in tool called SCAT, which is a computer-aided test tool, which actually helps you. And most of the time, the testing tool works that you record a previous use case, and then you add a test case on top. So the previous use case gives you the expected results, and then when you do the actual test, it gives you the real test results. So let's talk about uh, this most sought after area of who all can get into testing. And it doesn't matter if you are a consultant or you are a programmer, or you are a budding IT consultant who wants to get into the IT industry, or you are a fresher or a startup person or a new immigrant. So you can all get into the testing area, and it's a great area to get into the job market. So let's talk about what is the test strategy and what's the test plan. So test strategy is a high level approach of how the overall testing is going to work, whereas test plan is a low down, grassroots level approach. What all components are you going to test and how are you going to test? So test strategy talks about where are you going to test, right? How are you going to test? What is the quality assurance criteria? And what are the templates or documentations available in order to proceed with your testing. So let's talk about the environment first. So the environment, typically we have three landscapes in a typical setup, which is a development instance. And the development can be on premises, it can be a cloud server, or it can be a DevOps server using containers, or a cloud server using VM, or it can be a typical server sitting in your office premises, on a server rack. So you have a dev server, and this could be also a virtual server. You have a QA server, which is the quality assurance server, and then you have a production server. The production server is the live server where a customer will log in and start working and doing transactions like sales, purchase, deliveries, and so on and so forth. So, but let's talk about there is another server which sometimes is used for proof of concept, and that's called sandbox. So the sandbox is used for testing any changes or any new development or any functionality that the management might want for approvals, and based on the return on investment, they would go out and approve that change or a new functionality. Now you will start developing that functionality in the development server. You will configure, if you're a functional consultant, if you're a developer, you will develop or customize that environment. And from the development, it will generate what we call a transport request or a unique ID for the changes or the codes that you have put into the tables behind the scene. And they will move those code or changes or configuration from a development to a QA server. In the QA server, you will do different types of tests, and then ultimately move to the production server. The production is the real life environment where the business is going on. So if you're working for a retail store, is the front end. When you log out, that point of sale machine is connected to a server at the back end. If you're in the banking sector, the front end banking system is connected to the back end system, which could be a mainframe, or it could be a central network system, or it could be a cloud solution. Doesn't really matter. So again, the environment is development, QA, and production. Now, between QA and production, sometimes we have something called a pre-prod. A pre-prod is a server which replicates the production. You will actually image the production into pre-prod, and you'll scramble the data so that it becomes meaningless because it's real-time data of your clients, and you do not want that to get hacked out or get out of control. So you need to protect the data. In order to protect the data, we scramble the data so it becomes meaningless. But the number of transactions or the number of customers or suppliers or deliveries remains the same. And you will do a load test. Load is a response test. So again, you will have development, QA, pre-prod, and production environment. So that's the environment piece of it. The second thing you're going to look at is number of test cycles. So test cycles are typically three test cycles. So one you do after development or configuration. The second test cycle you will do is after making the corrections, and you want to check what corrections or bugs or issues you have faced. And the third one is a reconfirmation. Hey, I tested everything, and then you do an end-to-end test. So typically three test cycles will be there as part of your test strategy. Then there's test documentation standards. So you will have issue log or a bug log. You will have a test plan as part of it. You will have qualifying criteria or tolerance or variance that the company is willing to tolerate for passing the test. All those criteria will be there. And last but not the least, you will have documentation or accelerators that you use. So you will have templates of different types, including test scripts, test plans, bug or issue log, right? So on and so forth. And those actually will be part of your test strategy. However, let's come down to a test plan. So the test plan has critical components, right? So it has the methodology or the approach to testing. It is how are you going to test and what are you going to test and when are you going to test. So you will have a methodology. That means number one, what are you going to test? Number two, what are you going to test? Number three, what are you going to test? What is your test uh, script? So the second piece is after the test methodology, you will have a test script, right? A test script is basically a document which tells you uh, how things are tested, and it also gets approved by the client, right? So a test script has three components. It has the header, it has the body, and it has the footer. The header will have what project name it is, what is the test. If you're doing order test, like you'll have sales order test, and you'll give a script number there. Who is testing and who's approving? So you're approver and and the script writer. And the guy who's testing it and guy who's approving it. So you'll have those details. You'll also have the storage details of where the test script is getting stored. In the body of the script, you will have 4 or 5 major components. The first one is sequence of steps, which is called the testing sequence. Or sometimes we also call test sequence or test steps. So you will have 1, 2, 3, 4. For example, you enter A, and then you submit it, and then you generate a document number, and you take the document number and put it into another sequence or another transaction. So those steps are there, which is part of the test sequence. The second thing you will have is what we call as the use case data. Use cases data is something that the customer knows what the results would be. For example, 2 plus 2 is expected to be 4. So 2 plus 2 become the use case. Now then the test case is the new data that the customer is going to give you, and that's called test data. So the use case data is going to give you expected result. The test data is going to give you actual results. Now, between the difference between the expected result and the actual result, if it is different, then there is a variation of 5 to 10%. That's called the tolerance. And based on the tolerance, the client will approve or disapprove. So it'll be a pass or a fail. And at the footer of the test script, you will have something called conclusion, tested by, approved by, the date, and closure of the test script, right? So the test script would be the second one after the test methodology. The third one will be types of tests you're going to do. So let's talk about broad levels. So there are positive tests and there are negative tests. So positive test is what are you supposed to do and what you should be allowed to do. Negative test is more like a hacking test. What you should not be allowed to do. Are you allowed to do something that you should not be doing in the system? That's negative test. But before we talk about positive and negative tests, let's talk about what are the different types of tests. So the first test you do is called a unit test. A unit test is single transaction test, like order would be a single order type, right? Or invoice would be another transaction that you will generate, or payment would be another transaction that you will generate, and that's called a unit test. Now, if you are taking the data from order and putting it into invoice, and that piece where two documents integrate either at the master data level, that means customer name or general ledger account number, and that transaction go into the invoice, and invoice uh, and order will combine, and it's called an integration test. The third is an end-to-end test. So right from order creation to order execution to delivery and invoice and payment, that entire process is called the scenario test. So we have unit tests, integration tests, scenario tests. The fourth type of test we have is called regression test. So if you're putting a new functionality on top of the old one, or you're putting a new code on top of the old code, that's called integration test, or sorry, it's called the regression test. So regression test is, hey, I was running A, B, and C. Now I have put D, E, and F. Now by putting D, E, and F on top of A, B, and C, does A, B, and C still run? Or are we having even the ABC is not running the way it's supposed to do, in which case you will have to roll back and make sure the functions that were working are already working. And that piece is called regression test, right? So we have unit tests, we have integration test, we have scenario tests, and we have regression tests. Now, in terms of, again, types of tests, there are two different types of, one is called FIT, other is called SIT. So if you are interfacing with another system, or you are transferring data between two applications, or within two modules, that's called SIT, which is system integration test. And the scenario test within that functional module is called FIT, which is functional integration test. So we have FIT and SIT. So those would be the types of tests you do, right? The next would be the quality assurance level of the test. So what is the tolerance level? So tolerance level could be 5%, 10%. So the customer decides what's the tolerance level for, depending on the application and the business area. They will tell you what is the tolerance that you can have. So once we come out of tolerance, the next piece would be managing what we call the issue log or a bug log. So you will keep track of all the issues and bugs that you do, and you will manage those. So mostly we use tools like sometimes like Jira, or in SAP case, you might be using Solution Manager, or you might be using online portal, or it could be any of those testing uh, logs that are available in the industry, right? So you would, I mean, sometimes we use ServiceNow, or sometimes we use Jira, sometimes we use Solution Manager. It really depends on the company what their approach or what their standards for testing tool is. But once you have tested the application, then you would close your test, right? And you will actually move on from there on. So testing strategy is a high level approach with a test plan, which has got the sequence of tests to be done, the types of tests to be done, the test scripts, and different types of tests. So one of the important tests I forgot to tell you is called UAT, user acceptance test. So once you have done all different kind of tests, then the customer will, when he signs off the test script, and actually it's not just signing off, the customer will go out and do the test themselves. That piece is called UAT, or user acceptance test. And user acceptance test basically means your tests have been successfully completed, you have been successfully conducting all your different types of tests, or different types of test sequences, and the tools and technology that you have used, and the objective or the end result of doing all those tests have been met in terms of as a business objective, or in terms of the process objective. So that you would be signing off with the customer, and that's called UAT. So after you do UAT, the project cuts over and goes live. So you move the data from quality assurance to production. So again, test strategy is a high level approach, where a test plan is a sequence of different steps you do during testing. So guys, that in summary is the difference between test strategy and test plan. I hope you liked this video, uh, and please like and subscribe to this channel. We will take more topics like what do you do in a workshop, right? Or what is the cutover process, or what is the support or post go live process. We'll take those topics as we move on. So I look forward to speak to you guys. Like and subscribe. Please comment if you want me to cover any other topic. And I look forward to talk to you again. Thank you guys.